Here we go. Welcome back to the next episode of the Off the Tools podcast with myself, Wayne Bettis, and my co-host, Andy Jones. How are we doing, Andy?
Good. You?
Yeah, very well, very well. So today we are talking about choosing the right work to grow your business. And for some people, the word choosing the right work might be a little bit confusing, but luckily, Andy is very in tune with this. He is an expert at making sure that his business does the right type of work. And I would say, to float my own boat, I've been very good at this over the years. I spent many years just focusing on the type of work that was profitable to me. But before I waffle on, I have to remember that Andy is not a guest. Andy is a co-host, so I can't keep hogging the microphone. Andy, what does choosing the right work to grow your business mean to you, my friend?
So, I think from a trade perspective, there's always been too much of a more work is better. All work should be said yes to. I don't want to let a customer down. I will take anything that makes me money. Lots of that. So obviously we're going to focus a lot because of our backgrounds and our coexisting businesses. There's going to be a lot of talk about gas and heating related work, but it applies obviously to all realms, and maybe slightly less so to perhaps someone like a builder, but in terms of a jobbing type trade business, so whether that's gas, electrics, plumbing, whatever it might be. So in my opinion, the variable is what you want to achieve in your business. So again, to use that gas as an example, I would say a combi swap is always viewed as the golden nugget. It can be done in a day. You generally make £1,000 or more from it, and that would be viewed as the prime target for guys doing that. As a result, a lot of them may be hyper focused on trying to find that type of work. They'll put a lot of money into marketing to source that. The problem with that can be if you do, let's say you do 5 boilers in a month, and you don't do anything beyond fitting boilers, you will then have to find 5 new boilers / 5 new customers to work with the following month, and that process will repeat. However, if you was to target recurring work, so whether that's something like a boiler service or a CP12, then you will grow the business by targeting work that will come back around the following year. So that's kind of it in a brief of trying to find the balance. So the two big variables really is where you want the business to go, and what kind of balance between growth and profitability you want to achieve. So again, the most short-term profitable job in gas is going to be that combi swap. However, from a long-term perspective and customer acquisition perspective, I would argue a boiler service will give you the longest, the most valuable customer lifetime value, because the likelihood is you will get the boiler swap anyway, but it's an element of delayed gratification because that boiler swap might only come in 5, 7, 10 years, something like that. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
So to just quickly before you move on, lifetime value. So that to me is one of the most pivotal things when on this subject of choosing the right work. You've got to fully understand lifetime value. So do you want to explain that?
Yeah. So lifetime value is basically the amount of revenue you can generate from a singular customer over the period of time they will be your customer for. So that could be, someone might have an old deer if they've done work for 20 years, then it's going to be a 20-year lifetime value, and you would have to calculate the revenue generated over that. And the reason it's relevant to this conversation is by targeting that kind of work that is gonna give you the best long-term relationship with the customer, as I've just said, you can end up generating much greater revenue. For example, you get £1,000 for a boiler swap. You don't do any continuation of work for that customer for the boiler. Let's say you don't want to do servicing, you just want to do boiler fitting all day. You fit the boiler, you walk away, you make £1,000. The company that will target that customer for service and repair work, they might first contact, repair the boiler, make 300 quid, service it, 100 quid. That's 400 quid for year 1. Year 2, they'll service it. Year 3, year 4, service it. Year 5, maybe it gets a repair. They get another 500 quid. This goes on until perhaps year 7, 8 or whatever, they fit a new boiler and you've had the boiler anyway from it. I would argue that even from a servicing perspective, let's say you're only fitting boilers, the boiler lasts 12 years. You fit a boiler, so you could say that every 12 years, that customer will need a new boiler. If you spread that across the UK and use that as a metric, it means that there's 12 every 12 years, there's a new opportunity for that individual property, as opposed to a boiler service strategy and repair. Over that 12 years, even just from servicing, you would generate probably slightly more revenue than just fitting a new boiler every 12 years. That's probably a strange concept, and I've maybe not broken it down as well as I should, but if you're getting £1,000 every 12 years from fitting new boilers for that property, and you're getting £100 per boiler service on that property, just on the servicing alone, you've generated more revenue. So obviously there's all the repair work and whatever as well, but in a nutshell, being conscious of the work that you're targeting not only can generate more revenue, it will also then scale and grow the business. What I think most trades business owners struggle with is delayed gratification.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I've got a really good example of the lifetime value in action. So yesterday we were out servicing a boiler, and the old guy had a pile of paperwork. So I thought, you know what, I'll have a little look through that. And it turns out that we went out back in 2010, right, for a repair. We then fitted a new boiler off of that repair. We then serviced it every year. And then he had another new boiler last year. So the lifetime value of that customer has been, got what, £5,000-6,000 at least, you know, because we've not only did we go to that repair, we obviously then fitted the boiler. Then 15 years later, we fitted a new boiler. And in between that, we've serviced it and maintained their system that whole time. So when you understand lifetime value, it lets you be a little bit more choosy on what you do, doesn't it? Because you're not just thinking of that instant reward, which is so common. I think it's common in all businesses, but obviously we're tradesmen, so we're going to like focus on trades. But you know, you see that carrot, don't you, of that boiler swap, for example. Boiler in the heating industry, boilers are always like seen as the golden goose, aren't they? When in reality, your approach of service and repair at the forefront actually in the longer term can be a lot more lucrative, can't it?
Yeah, so even beyond what I was just saying about the value of something like servicing over the years, you've got to also think about a slightly different variable, which is I think of the right phrasing for it, the positioning with the customer, let's say. So if you get a fresh lead and a customer's looking for a new boiler off the bat from a fresh lead, it's going to be much harder to bring any more value to the customer other than the price that you quoted.
Yeah.
Conversely, if you acquire that customer as a service customer, let's say you fix the boiler on first interaction, that sector is less competitive because, as we just said, it's the golden nugget to get the new boiler. So the repair sector is less competitive. There's less guys doing it, less guys trained to do it. So you're more likely to win the job. It's also less of a price war for something like that than a brand new combi swap. You fix the boiler, you service it, you get it back up and running, then you look after that customer for a few years. When that comes time for a new boiler, you can, when you put your price in, you can continue to be strong with your pricing. Again, like I said, I've said on a previous episode, based on your value. So if you've been bringing great value to that customer, they know, like, and trust you, they're more likely to be happy with the strong price that you charge because of the value that you bring, as opposed to that price war of, I'm just getting prices, or he's the cheapest, I'm going to go with him. So it allows you to build that rapport with the customer in advance of fitting the boiler anyway. So, like, you described there from your other business. So yeah, that's why we've again, in our other business, we've targeted that from the get-go, really, because customer acquisition, if you're scaling a business, in my opinion, is more valuable than profit, than the immediate profit. If you've reached the point where you don't want to scale anymore, then yeah, you can pivot. If you're at capacity for your team, customer acquisition is no longer the priority for that business. Profit becomes the priority. So
that's a very good point.
Again, that's a topic for a podcast that we've got planned on pricing and stuff, but it's relevant in the fact that the type of work that you target is also dependent on where you want your business to go and where it's currently at. So if you're a one-man band, you want to stay that way. Let's say you don't plan on working for, you only want to do the next, 5-10 years. You don't want to scale a business. You don't want more staff out on the road, lads out on the road. Then customer acquisition is probably of less value to you than the company that intends to have 10 lads out on the road, because the only way he's going to get to 10 lads out on the road is by customer acquisition and scaling the business. So it's not a finite thing. It has to be fluid, as I was just saying. So it needs to be, let's say you are gearing up to take on a new engineer, then again, you have to make that pivot to customer acquisition and sacrifice some profit. So admittedly, yeah, doing a combi swap is going to make you the most profit, but sourcing more customers in the same day is going to help you to scale the business through acquisition. And the reason it's kind of a hot topic right now is as we roll into winter, for the lads that do the boiler breakdown side of things, because you should be putting your prices up over winter as the demand increases, like any business would. You can, if your pricing's right, generate the same amount of revenue per day from doing a day of repairs, breakdowns and repairs, than you can doing a combi swap anyway. But you've also got the cherry on the top then of much greater customer acquisition. So to go a little bit deeper into this side of thing, if you're only doing a combi swap a day, or maybe let's say you get a system conversion, conventional heating system to a combi boiler, and maybe you're doing a power flush on it as well and a couple of rads or whatever, and it's 3 days worth of work. Most guys will think, shit, I've got 3 days worth of work now. That's good. And it's generally viewed as a good thing to get a job that's going to fill the diary more, because it takes some pressure off. However, you've also got to think about what you stand to lose by doing that. And you're only
the opportunity cost.
Yeah, opportunity cost, which is a phrase that I hammer into the group all the time. The opportunity cost is substantial for something like that. So let's say you get that conversion, and let's say you get another conversion. That's only going to take you 2 days, and that's your week done. You've got 2 customers for the whole week. Versus, let's say you're smashing service, repair, breakdowns. You could be doing 6-7 jobs a day. If you want to grind it, if you're self-employed, working for yourself, you'll have to excuse me. A lot of the time I'll reference in terms of staff, because our heating business has engineers on the road. So obviously the capacity is reduced. But if you're working for yourself, you're probably going to take advantage of the winter. You might have capacity to do more jobs per day. But let's say you want to work off 6, 7 jobs a day for the whole week. That's substantially more.
28, 35 customers odd, isn't it? Yeah.
So yeah, even at 5 a day, there's 25 customers acquired that week as opposed to the 2. That's 25 new reviews. If you're requesting multi-platform reviews, that's going to be even more. By that I mean if you have something in place that sends out maybe a singular link that asks for a Google review and a Trustpilot review all in one, your happy customers tend to leave more than one review. So you've got 25 to 30 potential new reviews or more, 20 to 30 new customers in the system. So when you track that trajectory, if you've done a lot of repairs and either services there and then, or then they've been rebooked as a service, that's recurring work to come back round the next year. So 30 new customers in the system is going to scale the business much better than 2 new customers for that week. Even if, and again, winter is the variable because of the pricing throttle, but even if you generated less revenue for that week, you'll have improved and grown the business off the back of doing the jobbing work. And that's something that I think some guys really, really fucking struggle with, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The security.
I agree.
Yeah. And they like they see the number, oh, it's 15 grand's worth of work, that'll be nice this time of year. But not thinking, oh, actually, what am I losing by doing this? How many customers? And then to get a bit deeper again, when you block your diary out like that and your phone's ringing, oh yeah, my boiler's gone off. Can you get out to it? Sorry, can't. Stack this week. You're leaving money on the table from that. You're leaving customers on the table.
You're basically passing them to your competitors, aren't you? Every time you're stacked up, you're just opening the door for your competitor to take that customer, and it circles back, doesn't it, to the lifetime value? Because not only that customer acquisition, that's, you mentioned the reviews and everything like that, but it's also 20 to 30 potential referrals as well, which then compound that customer acquisition beyond that, don't it? You know, even if only 5 people that week recommend you, that's another 5 for the next week. And I think
great point.
Lifetime value comes back to the center of that, though, doesn't it? Because if you don't embrace that and you don't fully understand what that means, you're going to be stuck looking in the short term of, oh, them convert to combis, that's 10 grand's worth of work, all great, it's amazing. Whereas looking at it from your approach that you've just elegantly told us about, it completely changes it, because the repeat work, the reviews, everything you've just said, it becomes a no-brainer, doesn't it? So let me like sort of steel man this a little bit. But like so someone rings up today and says, you know, I want 3 radiators doing, and you look at it and you give them a price and it's like a good day's work or whatever. It's hard to say no, isn't it? It's hard to say no. So how can you? It's all well and good us sitting here saying, yeah. How does the person on the other end of this actually start this process? What are the things they need to start doing?
So obviously this is much easier if you're busy. It's also much easier if you've got girls or lads in the office answering the phone for you. So again, for the heating business, the other business that we've got, when somebody rings up asking that question, it's pretty much as simple as, we don't take on that kind of work at this time of year. In a nutshell, really. And if they ask why, it's just we're prioritizing keeping boilers running rather than cosmetic kind of jobs like putting new radiators in. It's service and repair is priority at this time of year. Some people will have boilers that have gone down, and that's what we're focused on. If you're quiet, that's a challenge. If you don't like letting people down, that's a challenge. If you are quiet and you want to start making that pivot, you're going to have to accept that. You're going to have to start to invest in the business. So again, this is a separate podcast on stuff like this, on marketing, but you can no longer scale a business without investing in marketing. You know, we spoke about this on the long podcast at the end of season 1 of the guys that wore it like a badge of honor of I've never had to do any marketing, and I stand by what I've always said and say they will be leaving money on the table. They won't be charging the right pricing. And if by some reason they're charging good pricing, which I don't think they would be, then in terms of scalability, they could not compete with someone who is investing it. I could not. I know I made the reference in the last podcast about that we've grown the business to greater than some guys that have been going 20 years in the space of 2.5 years. And that was only because we've invested so heavily in marketing. You could not open a business now and wait for the organic growth off the back of that, which is going to come back onto topic. That's the hack. The secret sauce of scaling is by being selective of the work that you take on. You will struggle to scale a business at pace, a heating business, at pace, if you're only picking those big jobs.
I agree.
Deeper into it again, while we're on topic, I would argue that this also transcends across to when you guys do work for builders or letting agents, because that analogy that we've just used of the two customers, the two system conversion customers, that's only 2 customers a week. If you're doing work for a letting agent and it's 50% of your diary, then you're losing 50% of your operating time. There's always variables to that, admittedly. If you've got some lads out working for you and you're using the letting agent work to make profit off a single engineer, then it's different story then, isn't it? Because it becomes a self-fueling machine and it's viable. But when it's you on your own, in my opinion, no self-employed sole trader should be working for letting agents or builders for that matter, because not only could the rug get pulled from you very quickly and shit hit the fan, you're also then hindering your own business growing to help their business make money. That's which is what obviously they do. So something else to be mindful of, and I'm sure we'll get some interesting comments and replies on that.
Definitely.
And we've got a lot of lads in the group, some that have now binned off the letting agents because they've sort of seen the light, and some that have been and we've got a new lad that's just joined who's quite smart with it, and he's using the letting agent work to fuel an engineer's diary with profit. So that's a little bit of a variable.
And it is a scary step to start being picky, but I can think of 3 examples in my own heating business where I've had to make those decisions, and I'll just quickly share a couple of them. So one of them was we did over 100 grand a year worth of work, excuse me, for an estate agent. And one day, obviously it weren't just a split decision, I thought about it, but one day I literally just emailed them and told them that I was no longer available for the work. And it was a nerve-wracking time, but I had come to the same conclusion as you've just explained, is that I realized that it was filling up over half of my diary, and the opportunity cost was too great. So although I had that security and that, or what I saw as security, when in reality it wasn't secure because they could just turn it off overnight, I was losing so many potential customers that we wanted to work for, new boilers, servicing, everything we just discussed. So anyone that is sitting there thinking, well, I can't just turn away that work, you've got to really think about that opportunity cost, because the minute you have more capacity, you can't fill 2 buckets of water if you've only got 1 bucket. So you have to create space, whether that be in employing someone, whether that be relinquishing some work, to be able to get the work that you actually want to do, and that ultimately leads to the profit and the business that you want. So yes, it's a brave step, but it is a risky step. There is risk to it, but business isn't meant to be easy. Business isn't meant to be risk free. That is the point. You know, business is taking risk for a reward down the line. So I would tell you to really look at it, look at the work that you're doing. If you're happy doing that work and you're happy with your business, then hats off to you, you know, brilliant. But if you're waking up for work miserable, you're stressed out, you're never home, you've not got the money that you feel you deserve, then ultimately you've got to make the changes. And choosing that work is the first step to that, isn't it? It leads you down a new pathway, because when you start choosing the right work, you start attracting the right work. And then you also then have the capacity to be a better business, because you're not just being a busy fool doing stuff that you don't want to do. If you want to do stuff you don't want to do, go and get a job. Go work for someone and do shit jobs that you don't want to do.
Just to jump in on that, this is something that I said in the long podcast, is that I would say probably 50% of guys who would say they have their own business / self-employed, doing a degree, either their diary in its whole, like I used to do, or in part, like your business used to do, working for someone else. So essentially a subcontractor. You're working for a letting agent, controversial statement, you're basically a subcontractor to them.
Yeah.
Like, then I don't think many guys maybe see it from that. Same with the builder. So if you've got 2 builders and 3 letting agents and that's all your diary, you're a subcontractor, you're not a business owner.
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
no, I agree. And again, though, if you're happy, great. But the chances are, if you're listening or watching this podcast, it's because you want to change. You want your business to be different. So, right, on that note, nice little controversial statement to end. I would encourage everybody to, whether you agree, whether you disagree, whether you have any questions around this, to reach out via social media in the Off the Tools group, or email Wayne or Andy at offthetools.co.uk. And we can obviously respond to those engagements as they come in when we do other shows. Any other closing points for this session?
Other than, take a look at your diary for the foreseeable. Have a look at the work and make a decision if it's the right work for your business. If you want to scale and you've got big jobs booked in, that's the wrong work for your business. If you don't want to scale, then go for the bigger jobs for the security of it. All
right. On that note, have a good one, everyone. See you on the next session.